Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com.
From Mansers on the Boulevard, on Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're Out to Lunch with Oscar Tickle, investigative documentarian and owner of Evolution Productions. It's business, Baton Rouge style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Oscar Tickle. We all know raising kids takes a village, but what if you're the one building that village? What if you're the one creating the spaces where children feel safe? Today, we're sitting down with someone doing just that through early childhood education. Tessa Holloway is the owner and director of Kidz Karousel, a network of early learning centers with 9 locations across South Louisiana. What started as a personal decision to save her children's daycare in Port Allen has grown into one of the region's most recognized family-centered childcare businesses. She and her husband built Kidz Karousel around the needs of families because they were one. Today, Kidz Karousel is a sought-after partner for major employers like Women's Hospital and Our Lady of the Lake. Tessa Holloway, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
When we talk about building stronger communities, we often start with kids' education, mentoring, and opportunities. But what if we went one step further and invested in the people raising them? That's exactly what Levar Robinson is doing with Fathers on a Mission. After years of mentoring youth, Levar realized the deeper need wasn't just helping kids, it was supporting their dads. Today, he leads a growing nonprofit that empowers fathers to be more present, more prepared, and more connected. And in doing so, he's reshaping what family support looks like in Baton Rouge and soon across Louisiana. Levar Robinson, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Something we've seen a good bit of on this show is people who see a need for their kids that isn't being met and end up meeting that need by making a business of their own. The origin story of Kidz Karousel is really grounded in your family. You bought your first center because your kids were losing theirs. You had no background in early childhood education, but you built the business as parents for parents. Now, nearly 20 years later, Kidz Karousel has grown into a company with more than 1,200 students and 243 employees. You've even been asked by major hospitals to open micro centers for their staff. Now, how did you go from parent filling a gap to becoming a go-to solution for Louisiana's workforce needs?
It wasn't my first choice. It wasn't my first decision. I never thought that this would be something that I would be doing. But once I got into it, it was my calling. And so it just grew from there. Like, I absolutely love what I do. It's stressful. It's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility, but I absolutely love it. It's my purpose. So that's why I do it.
Now, you pride yourself on being family first, right?
100%.
Now, how do you balance that with the growth of your company?
Retain good employees. Like, it takes, just like you just said, it takes a village to do things. And so we make sure to have the right people around us, and we are very family oriented. So when one person has to step out, somebody else can step in and fill those gaps to make it work.
Speaking of growth, at what point did you realize you were going to have to expand into more locations? Did you have to, or was it like we really want to do this?
No,
people are asking for it.
You can always, and you'll say the same thing, you can always stay in one spot and be comfortable and could live a great life and make you some money and help the community at the same time. Or you can get out of that comfort zone and push and make it bigger and help more people, help more families, help the community grow. So that's what we did.
Levar, the best solutions come from personal experience, people seeing a gap in their own lives and stepping up to fill it, but not just for themselves, but for others too. For you, that gap was fatherhood. You grew up without a dad, and when you started volunteering with youth, you realized the deeper need wasn't just mentoring kids, but supporting the men raising them. You started Fathers on a Mission with a simple idea and a rented room. And today, the organization runs 5 programs, has 2 offices, and is looking at expanding statewide. So, what was the deciding moment that pushed you to take the leap from idea to action?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have learned to understand that, it's not about being comfortable if you really want to make an impact and change, right? I can sit up and complain about things, and you look at, okay, what is that going to do, right? So for myself, I just was never satisfied with the mentoring that we have in our city, right? After servicing with different organizations, but I prayed about it, and God told me to look at myself. What would help me not make as many mistakes I made in life. And for myself, it was easy. Like if my dad was involved, so then I was like, oh man, wow, that's it. He wants us to work with dads. It makes sense, whether it's biblical or non-biblical, however, common sense. It makes sense, right? You strengthen dads, you can strengthen families. So, taking that ideal, and I initially shared it with other organizations, and nobody wanted to do it. And so I got frustrated and prayed again, and God said, "I gave you this for you, not for you to give somebody else." I was working in the chemical plant industry, so starting and running a nonprofit was not nowhere near my thought process, right? So, but I did launch the organization with a goal of having these monthly meetings to talk about different pillars of fatherhood, and that's what it boiled down to, right? Listening to if you're going to be a man of faith and be a believer, then you need to believe what God is telling you to do, and go for it. So it still was more of a push than me taking a leap. So, but once I was pushed, I haven't turned back. Yes, there are those stressful days you want to give up. In nighttime, you're like, oh my God, why you chose me for this? And you wake up next morning, you're like, what's next on my to-do list, right?
Yeah.
Or what I missed, So, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
What's been the biggest learning curve going from that, like when you first started, into a structured, scalable operation?
I think, you hit it right there, right? It's the structure of it, right? So I never went to college, so I don't have the business background. So just learning, a nonprofit operation, just like a business, is that your income comes in different forms than as pertaining as far as a business goes. But just learning the whole concept of it, and just having the faith and keep pushing and learning everything that I need to ensure that it's a sustainable organization, right? Not just a fly by night here one day and gone next. If I'm going to do something, I wanted it to last, and I want it to be impactful.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's been one of the biggest things, is learning all the components that I need to ensure that, one, yes, we are serving fathers and families, being impactful, but also sustainability.
I want to talk a little, both of you, open question here. You're both looking at scaling, right? So what has been your individual processes for determining what location you want to go to next? With Kidz Karousel, have you been specifically asked?
So I do consulting also for childcare, which with municipalities, with states, with different organizations. For me particular, if I'm looking to build or buy or whatever, I start with doing a feasibility study of where it's at, and I'll do a pro forma. I go through the whole thing, and the same thing. Does it make sense here? Where does it need to be? And it depends also on what the community is looking for, because we have been asked to go into certain communities and run a center for certain people or companies or whatever. So it just depends on what's going on. For myself, though, I start with looking to see where it makes sense for us to grow.
And what about you, Levar?
I would say that with us it's a little different, because there are not fatherhood programmings like we're doing across our city or even state, right? And so it's like, everybody wants us to come and bring our services to their location, but you have to realize we don't generate income by selling our product. We get it off funding, donations, grants, and things like that. So one of the things that we look at is that are you going to fund us, right?
Yeah.
Because like the need is everywhere. It is. The need is everywhere. In the areas that are looking to bring us to those areas, they have committed to cutting the check. And so from a nonprofit view, we need a check written for us to come and provide our services. We have a staff that we have to pay. We have materials we have to use. We have a building we have to lease, and all these other things that go with running a nonprofit business, right? So the need is everywhere. So now it's just being strategic about, okay, where we're going to go, where it makes sense. But one thing that I've learned is that just because we run X, Y, Z program in Baton Rouge, maybe another program, we may have to tweak that program or run one or two of those programs in another location based off the need of those areas. So that's been just like a wow moment for myself. Because like I said, even though the need with fatherhood support is needed across the state, however, some areas want to focus on some other things more than other areas of the program. So, yeah.
What would those different areas focus on versus Baton Rouge? Say like New Orleans to Baton Rouge difference.
So I'll share this, and this is a real life example, right? So in one area that we're looking to expand to, they want to start off with a preventive aspect of it, which I've been trying to push here, but we're not funded on a preventive side. We want to do a young father's risk and responsibility course, right? And so this is where we would meet with young adult males and young fathers, and it'll be classes directed serves towards risk and responsibility, and then / young father as compared to what we do here in Baton Rouge is just a fatherhood curriculum, which you can see when young men are sitting on there. The conversation is different because they're not understanding what some of these seasoned fathers are talking about, right? So, like I say, this one area they want to start off on the bottom aspect of it, and then go into everything else a little bit later on. So that's one of the views of a different programming that we don't currently have, but it falls under the realm of what we do.
And Tessa, you're currently looking at expanding into the Roseanne area, right?
Yes.
Can you explain a little about that?
Well, we bought the land on Perkins in front of Roseanne maybe like 2 years ago. When they were developing it, I was called and asked, did I want to put one there? And I was like, of course I do, sure. I have I have centers in some of Levels developments across the state. So that was a no-brainer. But then COVID hit, and then the taxes hit. And like right now, I'm pushing back again because there's a steel tariff and the building's made of steel, so that's not going to work. And interest rates are up. So all of that goes into, we have a wait list already. The need is there, but to make it where the parents can afford it, we have to wait. Because if you do everything now and it costs $5 million as opposed to $3 million, that's a big difference. And the community is who will have to pay for it. And child care is already high. So we're just going to wait.
So the wait list is full?
No, it's not full, but it's a big wait list, and that's pretty much at all child care centers probably across the state. There's not enough seats for the need in the state of Louisiana.
There's obviously a demand here. Mm-hmm. Now, when did people start to trust your company with their kids? Like, when did you start seeing people really start to file in?
When we first started, I took a very hands-on approach. I was never in this field. So when I started, I went all in because we mortgaged our house to buy our first center. So I could not lose my house.
Absolutely.
So it was one of those things when we went all in, we went all in. And so I started working in a classroom and everything. I did everything from ground up, and it just made people trust me more. And I'm still very hands-on. My families have my phone numbers. If you look at my phone right now, it's over 3,000 contacts in it because they can call me if they have an issue or whatever, the staff, the parents, and we're dealing with maybe right now 2,500 parents. And so it's a lot, but that's what I wanted when my children were younger, like to be able to have a conversation if something's going wrong, and and be heard, and actually something fixed and done. And so it stops at me, so they know if they get me and they're talking, it's gonna be done.
Have you seen, I mean, delegating a workload for so many locations? I mean, have you been able to delegate that well, or do you still feel that you have a lot of that responsibility?
I put a lot of responsibility on myself, but I have a great team. Like, we have a corporate office that handles everything, and a department for everything. One of the things that we did well was create the foundation to be able to have the bandwidth that we have, and just putting the right people in place. But I'm nosy. Like, I want to know everything. And so sometimes I don't need to know it, but I'm like, no, what happened? And I think I'm a little nosy, but I have the right people in place to be able to do that, to grow.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Oscar Tickle. I'm talking with Tessa Holloway, owner and director of Kidz Karousel, a family-run early childhood education company, and Levar Robinson, founder of Fathers on a Mission, a nonprofit supporting dads as a path to stronger families and communities. Now, Levar, speaking of growth, and we were kind of talking a little bit about building that trust to when you first start a program, you have to get people to trust that what you're doing is great. How did you go about doing that?
A lot of trial and error, right? And learning the processes. And for myself, also some of those processes, taking what I've learned through different educational avenues and implementing it, and then starting over, tearing it up and starting back over, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of trial and error. But then, like you say, once you get those people that hey, they're a good fit, make sure you retain those people on your team, so that now that's less thing that you have to do yourself. Now you start delegating to those person, you can just let it go, but you're still gonna keep your eye on them, because I know I sure do. But that's a huge part of it, right? The right people on the team that you bring on with the work that you're doing.
Let's talk about success stories. I'd love to hear the most notable moments for the both of you. Let's start an open conversation about that.
One of our breakfast fundraising events, we had a dad come in and share about give his testimony about his experience with Fathers on a Mission. And this gentleman, he met us through work we were doing in a parish prison. And so we did our 16 weeks responsible fatherhood class in the parish prison. And that's when he was first introduced to our program. Once he got out of jail, he struggled to get back on his feet. He reached out to us, right? We were able to help him get a job. Mm-hmm. We helped him get some work boots for his job. And he was come to our fatherhood classes. We had a financial literacy class he came to. There was another class he came to, which was first-time home buyers session that one of our partners facilitated. So this gentleman, he went from being incarcerated, struggling to get a job, to now connecting with us. We helped him get employed, get his work attire for the job, but then also connecting him back with his kids. And he was going through a situation where the mother was kind of keeping the kids away from him, so we got him connected to the right folks with DCFS, and they did do some things on their end, and he eventually got custody of his kids. And then he also just recently became a first-time homeowner, right? So those are things that he shared with at this breakfast, And so those are the things that we want to do, taking somebody from a negative point of life, and when they're having no outlook on life, and they think there's, the wall is in front of them. But yes, we do face walls and barriers, but we have to see what we can do to get across those barriers. And so that's what we did. So going from being incarcerated to being employed, learning about financial literacy, becoming financial literate, spending more time with his children, and then also purchasing his first home. So those are just some of the things that we do in different capacities with the work that we do.
Tessa?
I love that.
Thank you.
So we've had a lot of success stories. Next year will make us 20 years. Mm-hmm. And with all the children and families that have come through our doors, I guess the greatest thing for me to watch is to actually see when they start with us they're 6 weeks old, and then I see them graduate from college, and I see them just grown, and a lot of them come back and work summer camp for us and do things. So I guess just the growth is probably the biggest success for us. And of course, just like with the fatherhood program that you do, we do a lot of that with our families, because you become a family over the years. And so just watching the growth and development of the whole family is just awesome. But definitely having a child that you watch, and then they're this adult and they come back and work with you, and it's just it's great.
So people, even after they're gone, they still remember Kidz Karousel.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's big
100%.
for people to come back like that.
Oh yeah. We try to stay in the involved even after, so it's great.
Now, FOAM is the acronym, right? That's a great acronym, by the way.
Well, I thought it was kind of silly when God first gave me. God gave me the name, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that with every name there's an acronym. So I was like, Fathers on a Mission, FOAM. Man, somebody gonna think that's styrofoam. Nobody gonna believe in this. And look what we had today, right? And we're actually in the process of doing some changes with that. So, but yeah, it's amazing.
Changes with that? What do you mean?
So probably with our logo and the naming, we're probably going to do away with FOAM, the acronym. We're doing a marketing plan enhancements of the organization. So we are, it's just part of our enhancement process, enhancement plan for our 10-year anniversary. So we got some things up our sleeve to where we want to, as we continue to grow FOAM with the work that we do, we also want to grow FOAM as Fathers on a Mission, right? So when you hear somebody say FOAM, what's FOAM? But when you see somebody say Fathers on a Mission, at least they have an idea of Fathers on a Mission. They have an idea of what's going on with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking of what's going on, I don't think we've talked about the specifics of what the program provides, the specific services. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we have our weekly Responsible Fatherhood classes, which are weekly on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. at our main office at 1120 Governor Street. And this is where we have engaging conversations on fatherhood pillar topics such as a father's influence on his children, dealing with stresses of fatherhood discrimination, effective co-parenting. We have 14 different curriculum topics that we do. That again, it's engagement. Communication is one of my favorite ones because the dads pair off in twos, and we do an activity to where one side of the pair put on blindfolds, and the other one, the other father in the pair leads the father in a maze just by holding his hand. Then they swap places. Then the other father leads them with just communication, and that's all to show how the difference is when you use communication without the physical guidance, or if you use the physical guidance without the communication, how a child can be mixed up and not get the full understanding of what you're trying to communicate to them with them, right? So things like that with our Responsible Fatherhood classes, which are weekly, which we also have our Project Family Build, which is our case management process and continued care, where we have social workers that find out what are the things that a father and his family are dealing with. Notice I said family, a father and his family,
yes,
right? The things that they are dealing with in life. And so either through us or through other organizations, resources, we connect them to resources to help them through those processes. It could be education, furthering education, employment opportunities, preparing for opportunities, how to sustain their job. It could be mental health, whatever it is. Again, we connect them to those resources, and our case managers. It's a continued care program, right? Then we also have our father and child bonding events, celebration of fatherhood, which is our Father's Day weekend celebration, cooking with dads, father and daughter dance, crafting with kids. Those are different events, activities where fathers and kids do these things together, and so it's bonding time, education, and fun, all mixed into one. And then we have our enhancement workshops, which are financial literacy, first-time home buyers, how to start and sustain a job. So different workshops outside of our normal curriculum topics that can enhance a father and his family. So along with that, we have fathers who go through the program and come back and mentor other fathers. connect with other fathers. So we provide a whole atmosphere of fatherhood support because there's, like I said, there wasn't anything like this in our city or state. We also have a donations room where we have hundreds of suits. Every guy needs to have a suit where he can take himself out, his children out, his spouse, his friend, or whatever. So we have hundreds of suits through several partners that we make available for the father. So we do a lot, which I didn't realize to the back. I was like, man, well, y'all really work. I was like, don't everybody do this? And I was like, next topic. So, but it's very heartwarming to know that through our work, again, the goal is to strengthen families. When you talk about the success of children, the success of families, we have to stop leaving out the conversation around fatherhood.
Well, guys, parenthood isn't easy. It takes dedication, patience, and a whole lot of support from the community around you. Levar and Tessa, you're both showing us that building stronger communities starts at home, whether that's creating safe, nurturing spaces for kids or empowering the fathers who shape their lives. Your work is a reminder that real change happens when people step up, not just to fill a need, but to build something lasting for families and the whole city. Tessa and Levar, thanks for everything you're doing for the kids and families of Baton Rouge. And thank you both for taking the time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you for the invitation. Enjoyed
Thank you.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Tessa Holloway, owner and director of Kidz Karousel, and Levar Robinson, founder and executive director of Fathers on a Mission. We edited the show to fit into the time slot here on WRKF. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Tessa's Kidz Karousel and Levar's father-focused business by listening to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast. You can find us subscribed to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast on your podcast app and on our website, itsbatonrouge.la. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.la and on our Out to Lunch Baton Rouge social media. These photos were taken by Ian Lito and Miranda Alvarez. You can find more of Ian and Miranda's photos at albalitomedia.com and at albalitomedia on all socials. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producers are Peter Raschuti and Ann Edelman. Our researcher is Holly Dutchman. Today's show was engineered by JT O'Neill. With Stephanie Riegel, I'm Oscar Tickle. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to joining you again next week around the lunch table for more business Baton Rouge style on the next Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansur's is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.